Hi, this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and today I'm going to be presenting a game from the 2011 Candidates matches, which will determine who the World Championship contender to play the title match with Viswanathan Anand in 2012. So definitely a lot riding on these games, and there was a pretty nice upset. I guess the third game of the quarterfinals matches, and this is a game between Mamedyarov, who is rated about 2770, and Boris Gelfand. And so Gelfin is about 2730, so a nice upset today by Gelfin as black. And so let's get on with it. So Mamedyarov as white, he opens with e4, and Gelfin plays the Najdorf Sicilian in response. And so now with bishop c4, white is going to be taking matters. This is the Fischer-Sozin Attack, and Fischer definitely scored a number of solid wins with it throughout his career. And very strong players of note who have employed this. It's not super popular at the top level, but the most notable match or player that's used it, I believe it was the 1995 World Championship match. Nigel Short definitely scored some impressive victories against Garry Kasparov in that match. So continuing, b5 seems to be the topical treatment these days, and the immediate castles, maybe rook's going to come to e1. There's going to be some ideas of definitely piling up with f4, f5 on that e6 pawn. And so what black doesn't want to do, he doesn't want to allow a sacrifice. Knight bd7, this is pretty much the basis for the line, is sacrificing on e6 and achieving ample positional compensation. Let's say if queen e7 on knight d5, this is going to be a monster knight. So anyways, back to the point. So you don't want to allow that. So now queen f3, this seems to be the topical line these days. Threatening e5, which would open up the queen on the rook on a8. So black responds with queen c8. In case of e5, he's going to respond with bishop b7, no problem. So queen g3, starting to eye that g7 pawn, and now after castles, and bishop h6. So it seems like black kind of castled into an attack here. Why would he do that? Well, not a problem. This bishop's going to have to retreat later on h6. So knight e8, and black is kind of coiled into a protective stance right now. The idea is that if he can maintain that pawn on e6, defending the d5 and f5 squares, he should be okay, as long as he doesn't fall victim to a crushing attack in the first 20 moves. So now bishop d7 seems a little strange. Why not the bishop to b5? Well, again, that's not even, that's going to lead to an instant loss right here. So that's not going to work. So it looks a little strange at first glance, but the pawn on b5 is gain some space for black, and he's always going to have the idea of pushing to b4 as well. So bishop d7, definitely a better move. Keeping an eye on that e6 square again. So f4, and so white wants to directly undermine it. And now here he played knight c6. When I was watching the game, I thought, well, king h8 seems like maybe a good idea. Just go ahead and get that bishop out. And the idea, then white can't play f5 and retreat the bishop back to e3 directly, but it seems a little too premature as black hasn't developed all of his pieces yet. Now bishop g5, seems like black might want to play knight f6 and e5. This is going to be very, very favorable for white. So I guess that's the reasoning there. So now knight c6, just finish development. Maybe you want to trade this knight off so it's not putting so much pressure on the e6 pawn, and go ahead and get the rooks back into the game, or develop towards the center. So now f5 by white. So a very direct attack by Mamedyarov as white. He wants to, obviously he's trying to put some mate threats on g7, as well as weaken black's control of the e6 pawn and thus the d5 square. So if white can get a knight into d5, he's going to be sitting pretty well. So f5, that's the idea. And now knight takes d4, so go ahead and remove that attacking piece, make it a little easier to defend for black. And king h8, so this is a good time to play it. Definitely no harm here. So get rid of that bishop on h6. So bishop e3, and I believe this is all book. And I think now maybe queen h3 maybe is not a book move. I'm not 100%. It's a common move in these lines anyway. Just trying to put some more pressure on that e6 pawn, just trying to, maybe bishop g5 will come up, remove that knight on f6, and get that knight to d5. That would be very good for white's position. And now d5, and maybe this is the new move in this position. I'm not an expert on the line, but d5 seems to be very solid. And so let's look at what's going on here. So it seems like maybe this f takes e6, and now bishop takes e6. This seems to just be just fine for black. No problem here. He's totally, the center's going to open up, and there's not really any pressure on his king. So he's just going to slide the rooks, maybe rooks to the D and E files, or maybe the C and D files. Either way, black is, this is going to be an equal position for black. So going back, the other alternative, the other candidate move I would consider for white, pawn takes. Well, this is going to be easily equality for black, as after pawn takes f5, he's going to be very safe on the king side. No problems there. And this white's bishop on b3 is not really exerting any pressure on the position. It's this pawn is really restricting its movement. And so as long as white doesn't have any forcing, winning tactics associated with d6, black is probably going to be better in this position, as his king is going to be so safe, and it's very easy for him to play in the center. So instead, Mamedyarov sacked a pawn. He played e5, tried to open up lines, and seems like a reasonable move. And so now rook h4. So e5, that was another good idea. That was another good point of that, to play rook h4, set up some mating ideas on the h file. So now white is threatening to play bishop d4. So if black isn't careful, he's gonna lose, white's going to trade off this knight and play for direct mate on h7. So Gelfin plays a great move here, and he played it pretty quick. I think this was all home prep. He played rook c8. The point being, if white tries to go ahead and trade, if he can manage to play bishop d4 and take on f6, obviously he's going to achieve a mate on h7. So the point, rook c8, kind of a sneaky move. If bishop d4, well, black has absolutely no problem. He'll just trade it off, and this is just going to lead to a great position. So that's definitely not going to be a problem. Pawn takes, bishop takes, and as he's hitting the queen, white won't be able to sacrifice the exchange to go after the h7 pawn. So with rook c8, king h1. So now maybe bishop d4, and there's no pin on the king. And now Gelfin just 10 minutes of thought, and he sacks the exchange. And here's the real point of rook c8. Now the black queen is pinning this bishop on e3 to the queen on h3. So black has two pawns for the exchange, and it looks like he's defending the attack very well. So now rook d4, and I think black is not quite winning here, but he's got a great positional advantage. And a5, so now he's marking up that bishop on b3, and rook d3. So white, in a hurry, he centralizes the rook and kicks that queen out from c3. It was a little too active there. Queen c6, a nice move, just overprotecting all the pieces. So now with c3, a4, I think maybe a better move for white here. He played bishop c2. I think bishop d1 was maybe a little better, and swing the bishop back to the king side. But he still's got some ideas of attacking along the b1 h7 diagonal, so understandable. And now e5, and Gelfin is really playing very forcefully now, and he's just rolling. He's got the pawns in the center. He's also got some counterplay on the queen side, and his king is very safe. So Gelfin is just playing great right here. And b4, taking advantage of the pin along the c file, and queen h4. So Mamedyarov he's kind of got a superficial attack on the king, and it's just not enough. So black picks up another pawn, so he's now got 3 pawns for the exchange, and obviously he's not going to play h6 here and fall into some elementary mate, and he just plays king g8. And it's kind of like, okay, your attack is not deep enough to work, is kind of what he's saying. And the queen is defending the rook on a, which ties it together. So bishop takes, black gives up a pawn happily to get this queen out of play, and now there's nothing for white. There's absolutely no way to penetrate, and after this, black's king is very safe in the center. The pawns are guarding it very nicely. So going back, rook e1, and even though black has 3 pawns for the exchange here, and his king is safe. So g4, a desperate push, not a good sign for white, as he's opening up a lot of lines to his king, but he needs to attack, otherwise these pawns are just going to overrun the center. And so now king f8, so played a little bit safe, no problems here. And now bishop e3, queen c4. Both players have about 8 minutes now, and g5. And here Gelfin, I was very impressed by this move. He just sacked a piece for another 2 pawns. So very calm, and now, king safety, time is getting a little low. You don't want to worry about those small stuff. And here, he's just playing too good. So this light square bishop being able to swing over to g6, no problem at all for black. And now after queen g4, Gelfin snatches another pawn. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns against a rook. So definitely an unusual material balance here. And queen c4, queen g2, a3, bishop a2, trying to stop the pawns, and queen c6, a nice move, just tying the position together. And so after rook g3 and rook b8, and here Mamedyarov was about to lose on time, so he resigned in light of the fact that there's no way he's going to stop black's pawns. Black's bishops also are just supporting them too nicely, and not to mention black's going to have a nice, rook's going to come to b2, no problem. So maybe, I don't know what, I don't know what, it's just a lost position. If rook b1, rook takes, and c2 is just going to wrap things up. There's no way to hold this. And that's going to queen. So just an example. So very fine game played by Gelfand. All he's got to do is draw tomorrow with white, and he will advance to the semifinals of the candidates matches in 2011. So a great game by Boris Gelfand, showing he's still got it, a veteran player. And this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for listening.